In 2003, at the age of 20, I was lucky enough to attend something called the American Leadership Academy. It was hosted by a guy in the fraternity that I was in, super successful, billionaire guy who brought a ton of kids down every summer or every spring to teach leadership and teach all the things that he learned along the way, bringing guest speakers. Like, it was this really cool, fun experience. One of the topics, and this is going to be what we're talking about today on the show, was an older gentleman who was, again, CEO of a very large company, super successful, but he gave a talk on winners and losers, what winners do and what losers do. And it really got me thinking, a couple weeks ago about that speech. I don't know why it popped in my head. It just did. And one of the things he said that we're going to dive into is that winners go to work before the sun comes up and they come home when the sun is down. And if you're like me, I'm assuming that is going to elicit some sort of emotional response in you. You either very, very adamantly agree with me or even more strongly disagree with me. And that's cool. It should be that way because it is a very polarizing comment. And Ole and I wanted to discuss it. So stay tuned for our take on that. Would love your thoughts as well, guys. This is the D.H.E show. It is for dads, husbands, and entrepreneurs. That means we want to hear from you if you're a dad, a husband, or an entrepreneur. Let us know. How are we doing? Is this resonating? Do you like what we're talking about? What are we missing? What are the things that you would love to hear from us next on? And we are going to make sure to continue to bring that to you and to our community. If you could do us one favor, I'm going to say it again because I have to. Share the show, guys. If you are finding value from what we're putting out there, please do us a favor. Share the show. Get the message out there. Tag us on social media. Do whatever you're comfortable with to just help us spread this message, because being a dad is not easy. Being a husband is even harder, and quite frankly, being an entrepreneur might be the worst job in the world. And so let's build a community to support each other, to lift us up, and to help us just get through all of the craziness that is life, to make all of the things we're working for more fun, more exciting, and actually pan out. Without further ado, everyone, here is the show. Take it away, guys.
Welcome back to the D.H.E podcast. I'm not going to make fun of my co-host this time around.
Thanks, asshole.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, you know what? The good news is we actually like each other. It's not like a lot of the podcasts where everybody trying to pretend like they like each other. I mean, I guess they pretend like they like each other and they actually hate each other. I don't know.
Do you, well, man, I'm going to go on a total sidebar. Jordan Harbinger, do you know who he is?
Yeah.
The Jordan Show. Do you know his backstory with his podcast and what? I think I have this right. I think he was part of a duo or a trio of very successful podcasters, and they essentially like kicked him off the show because they want to do their own thing.
And they're not successful, and he is.
We might have to take this out because I might be completely butchering it, but I'm pretty sure they are still somewhat successful, just not nearly as successful as he is. But imagine that, like you build a show with a team. And then they're like, yeah, peace out, dude. We don't want you here anymore.
It's
like corporate America, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, you see it all the time in these founder stories of like, they build a company together and they force someone out because they have a different vision.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's ugly.
But yeah, I guess podcasting is no different nowadays. It is such it's a lucrative money-making machine if you do it the right way. So it's not crazy. All that different than a business.
It's astonishing. In fact, there was a really interesting piece maybe a month ago on how much money Spotify has lost on podcasts, because you got some enormous podcasters, but like they don't actually generate and like that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's like,
yeah, ad revenues.
Even with the ad revenue, like the advertisers are like, dude, we're not really getting a good bang for a buck on this.
Unless you're a supplement.
Yeah, unless you're a supplement.
Or NetSuite by Oracle, which is not a sponsor of ours. I shouldn't have even said that. Well, hey, let's jump in. We're gonna do a little entrepreneur focus, but with a dad spin to some extent. We'll call it a husband spin. But basically, we did a show talking about journaling, and when I was thinking about journaling, the reason it popped into my head, A, it's something that you were talking about the other day that you do, but B, there was a guy. So when I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and the fraternity had a leadership academy down in Cabo, which was an excuse to go to Cabo and party. But the rule was every morning from like 9 to noon, you had to go to the sessions. And this was way before social media, way before YouTube, way before anything else. But these are like legit business people, multimillionaires, billionaires, like big time people that would come in and talk. And we're all hungover, drunk, stupid college kids. What do we know? Some of it stuck though. And so there was one guy, and I'm totally blanking on his name. I think it was Jim something. He must have been in his 60s or 70s in the early 2000s when he's talking. He was a big business guy. He's from Minnesota, even though I think his chapter is in Indiana. But he's talking to us, and his thing was, so two things I wanted to get your take on today. One thing that he did that he said was the ultimate defining point of his success is that he always carried a piece of paper in his pocket, always, no matter what. Because it was the only way for him to remember and write stuff down and take notes and like, okay, here's the shit I got to do today. So, I mean, call it note-taking or whatever. Really, it was his form of journaling, right?
One random question. Would the cell phone qualify as that because you can take instant
Now
notes?
It is.
Okay.
I mean, this is way before even cell phones. Well, I guess the flip phones were around then, but not note-taking abilities.
Yeah, not the technology we have now.
So, maybe, and I know uber successful people that use Note or like any of the Note apps on their cell phones and do something similar, but like that always stuck with me, and that was the impetus of the journaling discussion we had the other day. But the other thing he said, and this is what I want to pick your brain on and talk about today, these guys, so Jerry Nelson was the guy that owned this estate. Jerry Nelson, not to go into too much detail, but self-made billionaire, owned a ton of property and real estate, big time, super successful guy, right? And his thing was, you're either a winner or you're a loser. Like, you are.
Aggressive, but I can kind of agree
Right?
with it.
And this is from a guy who, he didn't make it big until he was like in his 40s or 50s. He had like multiple 10, 15 failed businesses, tons of startups, tons of failure, tons of shit that didn't work.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, Chief.
Right? Until one day it worked in a big, big, big way. And now, I don't even know if he's passed away at this time or not. Either way, whatever, winners or losers. So we'll call him Jim, the guy that's giving this presentation. And he says, well, we're going to go on with the winner and loser theme here and my story and what I'm talking to you guys about today. And this is what he said. Winners go to work before the sun comes up, and they go home when the sun goes down. If you want to be a winner and get ahead in business, that's what you have to do. And at the time, I'm like, and that honestly, that drove a lot of my 20s and early 30s in corporate America. I wanted to be a winner. I wanted to be successful. I would be, as much as I could be, the first person in the office and last one to leave. And if I wasn't the last one to leave, like I was the guy at home at night working on my laptop, staying up late, like totally, putting in the time. And I was thinking about it the other day, right? Like, is this something, what am I going to teach my kids when it comes to this sort of stuff? Is that message still relevant in 2023? Is there some truth? Is like, what do you make from the whole work-life balance, putting in more hours than your competitors? Like, how do you think about all that?
I think a lot of it's bullshit.
Think so?
I think it is. I think, so, number one.
Hold on. Do you think, let's separate two things as we go through this discussion. Outworking your competitors, so putting in more time than your competitors is one bucket. Bucket two would be time, like actual time spent doing it. So like the 40-hour work week, I think is bullshit. But I don't think it's bullshit that you have to outwork your competitors.
Correct. So where I go with that is, right, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when this guy built his empire, there wasn't the technology we have now. So you had to be in the office early and you had to stay late because that is where you could actually get shit done. You didn't have the computer access to remotely log in. You couldn't do stuff from home, right? It was a different time. It was also a much different era.
Yep.
The one thing I will say, though, when it comes to, like, yes, you have to out-hustle, outwork your competitors. But you see this, and you saw this during COVID, where people are like, oh, productivity shot through the roof. People are doing this amazing thing. Well, yes and no. And I think Harvard Business Review, someone did a study, it was like the average corporate America employee in America only actually works, in air quotes, like 18 to 20 hours a week. The other 18 to 20 hours They spend bullshitting with their friends, wasting time. So
Right.
I think you can out hustle, outwork, kick your competitor's ass in 40 hours a week if you're willing to work 40 hours a week. And I think the people that are ultra successful do that. They don't waste their time. I don't think it's an out hustling people. I think it's a don't waste your time. I think that's really what my perspective. Controversial, but it's a time waste thing. I think.
Well, you said something here that I wanted to piggyback on. You said the average worker is what 18 hours?
Corporate America is like, I think the study was like they're only doing their job 18 hours a week. The rest of it, they're talking to coworkers,
right? So I think
reading.
that was this guy's point, is that in his mind, an average worker is a loser, right? He's talking about how do we create the next winners. When you talk about the senior leaders of companies, the CEOs, the people who ultimately climb the ranks and rise and do whatever they do, they're not in that 18 hours a week bucket, right?
No, I mean, I look at my dad. I mean, he's a role model to me, mentor to me, and just an awesome dude. He genuinely worked 80 hours a week for pretty much his entire life. Now, he loved what he did. He very rarely missed, I'm going to say, the important events in our lives, if ever. But he loved what he did. And so I think there's a couple of things. Number one, you gotta, if you want to work hard, you want to climb, you better enjoy what you do. So if you go into a job and you're an accountant and you're like, this is what my major is in and this is what everybody told me to do, but you hate it, you're never going to climb the ladder. You're never going to have the will to work 40 hours. You're going to work as little as you possibly can. Whereas if you truly love it and it's that labor of love that you employ, I think 40 hours a week is great. Like a good example, Matt, is when I was in insurance, I wasted so much freaking time because I hated my job and I hated the people I sold insurance to for the most part. Now, I work more. I spend more brain power, work harder every single day because I genuinely care about what I'm doing and I believe in what I'm doing. And I mean, I don't think we need to work 90-hour weeks doing what we do. Maybe eventually as we start to get product that we can actually demo and whatever. But no, I agree with his perspective. But I also think to some extent, times have changed, right? Another perspective that I think about is there are a lot of people that, like you're a night owl, right? You love to be up at night.
Yeah.
You probably work your ass off at night and get a lot done after your kids go to bed. I'm a guy that, like, if I don't get up at 4:51, I don't do, like, by the afternoon I'm shot. You've seen that. Like by 3 o'clock, I don't even know why I stay in the office at 3. I should be out doing my work. I should do my workout at 3:30 every day because that's when I actually, like, that's when I want to go do it. Like, I don't have the brain power. So the other piece of it is, I don't think it matters the schedule. It matters just like the intensity of the work you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think that's the missing piece in all of this, is that winners go to the office before the sun comes up and go home when the sun goes down. Fine. But if they're dicking around and not being super productive, then what's the point? Like, I do think times have changed a little bit, but I think the bigger key is that you're spending the right amount of time on the things that actually matter. And that could be 2 hours a day. It could be an hour a day.
Well, so Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week, is very true. Like, if you just, okay, so your nickname I gave you came from our former chief operating officer of the company I work for, who was a real hard ass and a curmudgeon of a human, but frankly, very smart. And we were talking one day about time, and he goes, Ole, you're wasting all your time. And I'm like, yeah, bullshit. He goes, every 5 minutes, write down what you did. It was the most sobering, disgusting exercise I have ever done in my life. Because you think you're working, but you're not.
You're just there.
Or like you start doing busy work that doesn't actually do anything to produce results for what you're doing. And I think that's the piece. I don't think, and I mean, I think to some extent Gladwell discussed in some of his books too. Like, yeah, there's the 10,000 hour rule, but there's also like some of it's just luck. Were you born at the right time in the right industry? Do you have the right expert? Like, there's a lot of factors. The show up early, stay late, I don't think is going to make you any better unless you absolutely want it. And I think at the end of the day, it's your desire. Me, if you told, like, if you think about it, my perspective, right? We both have kids. The idea of working 80, 90-hour weeks just to get ahead and make $10,000 more a year doesn't really intrigue me. Didn't really intrigue me. Probably wouldn't. Because I want to hang out. I want to be around my family. And I'm thankful for everything my dad did. And I'm thankful. Like, I love watching my siblings work their ass off in M&A and do all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, we grind. I go to events, we do demos, we do things, right? It's part of it. But I also want my kids to understand, like, you got to have a job, you got to be productive, but you also want to enjoy this life. Because I think it's the piece, is I look at my former world, there were a lot of divorces. There were a lot of buying their kids very nice things because they were never around. Is that a healthy relationship?
Well, that I think for me has been the biggest shift. And like, I was, not that I'm not driven now, it's a different way. When I came out of college and when I got into corporate America and when I got my MBA and I did all those things, it was like, hey, I want to be a CEO of one of these companies someday. Like, I was all in. And I think when I was at SuperValue, my first corporate America world, I think I was promoted 4 times in 5 years. When I was at Land O'Lakes, I was promoted twice in 3 years. When I was at Target, now I've got 2 kids. I didn't get promoted at all in the 5 years I was there, right? And I came in at a somewhat high level to begin with, right? So there's some of that. The other places I was starting more at the bottom, but the thing that changed for me was like, I would rather be at home with the kids, raising the kids, doing shit with the family. Like, we live a good life. I don't necessarily want to be the VP that's traveling 80 hours a week. Like, I don't necessarily want to not see my kids. I know the executives at Target travel 300 days a year. Like, I don't think I wanted any of that anymore. And it just, that was the mind shift switch for me. And now, like, what I do in my role today here, and well, not as much here, but in the brokerage world, the reality is, like, all I got to do is sell product in, right? And the sale could take an hour, it could take 2 hours, it could take 10 hours. So it's not a time thing anymore. It's a productivity thing. Do the right things at the right times. And it's not so much about, like, just putting hours in for hours' sake.
Well, so I think we're both in agreement. It's not necessarily about the hours in terms of the top line hours, because we can all be very busy.
Yeah, we're not billable. We're not billing hours.
No, but like, I heard on the Tim Ferriss podcast years ago, the lady said, like, busy is a choice, and I think it's funny because I'm so busy.
Yeah.
Well, are you, or are you choosing to be busy because you're wasting time? What are a couple productivity hacks that you've found that help you be more productive, get more stuff done in a shorter amount of time, and less distracted?
Well, I think we were talking a little bit about this a few minutes ago. I think that the number one most important thing is that you actually know what you're doing. And I don't mean, like, you know your job. I mean, what are the things that actually matter and actually drive results, right? That's it. And so if let's go back to my Target days. The only thing that mattered when I was at Target, was that I was putting the right items on shelf that were going to sell more, to drive more sales and more margin. That was it. That was the job, right? If that took me 5 hours to find the next best thing, great. But then there's 30 hours of political stuff and meetings and this and that and HR and diversity and, like, all of this other stuff, right? But at the end of the day, my job was to drive sales and margin. So I think productivity hack number one is, what is that one thing that you need to do in your job to be successful? Identify that and make sure that that is your priority every day. And that could take you 20 minutes, could take you an hour, could take you 2. I don't know. It depends. But if you do that thing that matters most every single day, you can, I'm not saying don't work, but you can not worry as much about some of the others.
Yeah, my perspective. I agree with everything you said, and I think my perspective is you eliminate the bullshit, eliminate the things that just you don't need. So in my world as an entrepreneur, and you've seen it, probably noticed me. I can get distracted pretty easily. I recently went back to the Apple Watch for the reason of when I'm doing things, like when I go to lunch meetings, my phone doesn't come out of my pocket. And I have it set to, I only get alerts from my wife or my parents if they need me, right? So it's things like that keep my distraction away. I think we were talking about it with your nieces and like your nephew, how often they check their phones.
Yeah.
It's scary. In fact, here's a really funny piece. So as much as I want to preach to you that I'm a good dad, I like everybody else, I tend to get distracted by a cell phone if it's around me. And so I made this decision where I took this little guy here like a couple weeks ago. And since I have the Apple Watch with cell service, if my parents need to call me or someone needs to call me, great. But like, why do I really need to check shit from 5 to 8? Like, I need to be present with my kids.
Yeah.
And so the productivity hack that I had to be more productive with my kids was I leave my cell phone in my car. Most nights my cell phone stays in my car. Why? I don't need it. I have an iPad. I can check emails at 8:30 when the kids go to bed. But it just eliminates me from having any other distraction while I'm with my kids. Like,
well, I think that sort of leads into then tip number 2 would be set your environment up for success in the first place.
Yes.
Like, if you know that you're going to get distracted by Instagram or TikTok or whatever, then just don't have it around you. As stupid as that sounds, but identify the things that actually matter and then just make sure that you do them. We don't have to make it more complicated than it needs to be. Like, you don't need to fill your calendar up with meetings. You don't need to be busy. You said it as a choice. Like, that's...
Well, one of the things too, like this is my perspective. If I have something I really need to do and I don't want to do it, so like busy work, just shitty, grunty, busy work. I have realized the absolute best place for me to go to get that stuff done is a coffee shop. I have no idea why, but if I have to go in and enter 22 invoices and pay bills, I'm better off going to a coffee shop than coming to the office. Because I come to the office, there's a million distractions. I can go into the test room and start making test smoothies. I got 3 screens here. I got 1 there. I got my goal. I just buckle down. There's people around me. I have this accountability, right? And so that's one of those productivity hacks. Like, if I know I need to do something like that, I just go do it there.
Yeah.
It's really
set
weird.
Your environment up.
But I set my environment up for success as opposed to coming to the office where like you can go walk around. Because weird fact, I will not talk on the phone at a coffee shop. You call me while I'm in a coffee shop, I will not talk. I hate talking on a phone in public. So if I want to be distraction free, I just go sit in a coffee shop because I'm not going to have a phone call in a coffee shop.
Do you think this conversation? So again, when I first heard Jim talking about this topic, 20 plus years ago, it was a really different world just in terms of the type of work that was being done. So you and I mean, we can work anywhere, right? Like, our jobs are highly digital, it's highly online. For people who have more of a set schedule or like not factory work, but like you got to actually like service work, you got to go see people, you got to go do things. Like, do you think that his sun up to sunrise mentality is maybe a little different depending on the industry? Or do you still think it's bullshit for the most part nowadays?
I think there's still some of that in there. I mean, like, right, you want to be an accountant, you want to cut your teeth and become a partner in a CPA firm, you got to do it. I think a lot of other professions, it's really how smart do you work, not how hard do you work. And you can work your way up the corporate ladder. I also agree, my dad always said to us kids, he goes, 50% of the battle is just showing up. Show up and you're automatically going to be in the top 50th percentile. Show up consistently and work kind of hard, and I'll probably be in the top 10%. Because look around at our peers, look around at people. Some people, they just don't want to put in the effort. They're looking for excuses, back to kind of the journaling discussion. They're looking for excuses. They're looking for reasons to be negative, not reasons to be positive. And I say that I was there. I was that guy in my former job. I was Mr. Negative some days because it was more fun to be negative. Oh, and everybody, bitch about this, bitch about that. And I regret it Because at the end of the day, like, what did I get accomplished? It probably just pissed other people off. And I can admit that now. I'm comfortable enough. Like, I've changed. I try not to be negative, unless you're talking about competitors, in which case then I get very negative. Although I'm trying, like I told you this morning, I'm trying to work on that. But no, to answer the question, I think part of it's just you got to show up. You got to be consistent. You do that, you're halfway there. And then I don't know, like I kind of subscribe to the Gladwell theory of like success is kind of just dictated based off of when you were born and when you're like what is going on.
That's a very specific example in that book.
Oh, he talks about numerous of them though.
When you were born?
Yeah.
The when you were born thing was primarily for sports.
No, but he talks about even like Gates, Jobs, all those guys, they were all born within like 8 months of each other. And like so to be the type, yeah, to be no, like they're all born at a certain like within like year wise, they were all the same age.
Why does that matter?
Because you think about it, right? Like the heyday of computers, right? It came. They were at the right age, the right time.
So it's the right
to capitalize on it
in history for those guys to be born.
And every industry has that. You'll see there's like 10 people in that. Like okay, like Elon Musk, brilliant guy, but he just happened to start the company at the like truly the right time when people were really starting to get freaked out over gasoline, whatever.
What, Tesla?
Yeah,
dude, he started so long ago.
No, I know, but he as he got it going, like he was the pioneer when it was ready. Had he started that company in 1993, it would have gone nowhere. It would have died. It would have been dead long before it made it. Right? There's more timing, more luck involved in being ultra successful.
I think more of that though is looking at the industry. Like, why would you start it in '93? Like, it wasn't even a possibility to start it then. I understand what you're saying, but like that's not so much to me luck of when you were born or luck of anything as much as it was smart decision when to get into it.
Yeah, but sometimes like it was easy. I'm maybe misspeaking here, and someone's probably gonna light me up. Mr. Beast in 20 years probably couldn't become Mr. Beast. He couldn't, because by then it's going to be a new platform, new technology, new this, new that. Like there are people like that you get into it at the right time. Timing.
Well,
dictates
again,
a lot
on
of
the
success.
Mr. Beast thing, yes, he got in at the right time because there was nobody like him, but he also is the best. Like he created what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen his stuff. I don't spend any time on YouTube.
But just his story, if you go back and look, I mean, Mr. Beast, for the first like 4, 5, 6. If you don't know who Mr. Beast is, he's like the most prolific YouTuber in the history of YouTube. He makes more money from he has a larger film budget than some of the actual movie studios. And this is for a guy making YouTube videos. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars a year and cost to make videos. Sidebar. But his start, and I know we're in a rabbit hole, that's what we do here. His start for like the first 4 or 5 years was him recording in his bedroom, just like talking and recording. And then he got a peer group, and like these 4 or 5 people, they would record videos, and then every week or every like couple days, they would review each other's stuff, and they'd get critical feedback, and they would test things and learn, and they were always trying and improvising and innovating, and like he is who he is, not because of timing, but because of the effort.
You also said something really interesting there about success and showing up, or just in general. Be open to feedback.
Well,
like that's probably the bigger piece of like those that are ultra successful can take feedback and can adapt. Those like there's a lot of people that are successful, but nobody wants to be around them because they're the guys that go and gals that like you give them feedback. Oh, nobody believes that. Nobody. Oh no, you're wrong. Like I challenge you, find an executive that people love. And I heard a friend of mine, he worked for a major Fortune 500 company, and the CEO was loved by everybody I taught. Everybody I met that worked for that company was like, dude, we love him. I was like, why? Like, what makes him so special? Like, most companies, everybody hates the CEO. I go, because we can tell him when something's wrong, and he'll listen. We can send him a note and be like, hey, this happened, and he'll listen. We can tell him, like, hey, we really didn't like how you spoke about that. And instead of telling us to shut up, I'm the CEO, that he listens. And I'm like, isn't it kind of funny? Like, part of it, too, is like, do you actually care? I think part of the other success, if you're going to build a company, you can build a real estate company. I don't know how many employees the guy had, maybe 1,000, maybe none. But if you're going to build a company with people and you want success, I would argue too, like, you need to genuinely know how and want to lead people, because there's a lot of leaders there's a lot of people that they get to a point, they can't go any higher.
I think that going back to what we were talking about with sort of the work-life balance, like how does this actually come to fruition? You know, that again is an example, the skill set of having a team and leadership and all that. That's not you don't learn that just because you're in the office working your ass off, putting in the hours. Like, so I go back to the conversation we started of time. Time is not what matters. It's doing the right things and working on what actually matters at where you are in the business, I guess. Like winners, yes. I think the new phrase should be winners devote the time to the most important task better than anybody else.
So I'll sum this up, because I think this is what, in my perspective, the new version of that, it's not how much time you spend in there. I mean, obviously you can be at the office for 12 hours a day, kiss the right ass, you're going to move up. The people that I see going up and that are truly climbing have something that you cannot teach: intellectual curiosity. That is the ultimate thing. Intellectual curiosity.
Winners are curious.
Winners are curious. They want to understand how it works, why it works. They want to break it down. They want to put it back together. They want to understand. I mean, we could dive into this for the next hour, but the people that I know that are the most successful in business or whatever, nonprofits, you name it, they were just damn curious about how it worked. And you know what? If they were the CFO, they didn't just worry about finance. They understood how everything went together. They understood all the facets. If they're the CEO, maybe they're not a finance guru, but they at least want to understand how the balance sheet works and what happens. I think that at the end of the day is probably the new one. Winners are curious.
I'll add one other description. We won't keep adding on.
Winners are Matt Edelman?
Oh, God, no. I think winners are curious action takers. Because it's one thing to be curious and just learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and be curious and learn and be curious and learn. But at some point you have to do something, right?
I think that's a perfect way. I think we need to trademark that. Winners are curious action takers.
I think that's...
Because you're right. It sounds mundane. It sounds dumb. Just put that on there.
It sounds simple. It sounds as simple as saying winners are going to work before the sun comes up and going home when the sun is setting. Right? Like that was simple and true back in the day.
I mean,
I think our world today, with how digital, how connected, how everything else, winners are now the curious action takers.
Yeah, you can be curious and it's not going to do anything. But if you're curious, winners are curious action takers.
See, we're not going to add more descriptors.
That accept failure.
See, now we're...
I know. All right, we're wrapping up because I got to go meet a guy for lunch, and Matt needs to probably go get his Mediterranean bowl.
I might go get that again. If you guys... We'll wrap this up. If you enjoyed the show, you know what we're going to tell you. Please, won't you like us?
Please, pretty please. I would love like 4 more likes in my life.
Oh, for real. If you guys got value out of the show, please do us a favor. Share the show. Join our community. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to start opening up comments and getting feedback and questions and answers and all that sort of stuff from the guests and the community. And so engage. Be active. We'd love to hear from you guys. Enjoy your lunch, Ole.
Stoked. Adios.
See ya.